Video games are a huge part of culture, it's a huge part of my life, and one thing that I found interesting was a question that my oldest son asked me. One day he candidly asked me how I heard about new games when I was a kid, and that made me wonder, how did I hear about these games? Of course we had magazines, GameSpot, and IGN were all the rage when I was younger, but in my memory banks, I recall the power of a quality commercial on the television, and that's going to be the topic of today, the best NES commercials in my opinion. Now I sat through tons of archive footage of commercials for various video games on the NES, and I'm sure I barely scratched the surface for what is out there. There's tons of lost media, and unfortunately I'm limited to what's available to me. That being said, 10 of them did stand out. Let's begin. Growing up, I was part of a Star Wars family. My dad had the VHS tapes, and it used to be a tradition that when the newest Star Wars movie came out, we would go to see it in theaters, specifically the prequels. As an adult, I regret not being able to see the newer films with him, even though he didn't really like them. That bonding moment would have been worth it. Now, even though we were a Star Wars family, I know without a doubt that Dad did not have Star Wars on the NES, and when I asked him about it a few years ago before he passed away, he said that it was because his friend at work said that it was so easy to die that it wasn't fun. And you know what? I think I agree with that friend, but the commercial for it is pretty badass.
The boy, where is he?
Here we go. Mark to the Death Star! Yes! Mom, ever heard of Narnia?
Star Wars, a force stronger than your parents doesn't want you playing.
Whoever directed this one, they understood the assignment and made it damn close to be an actual Star Wars scene, and I appreciate that. I never enjoyed commercials that focused solely on gameplay, so having those realistic elements, that was pretty neat. I like to think that if this was the Japanese version, Vader would turn into a scorpion, but this is lore accurate, so no weird mystical transformations. Crystalis is an amazing game, and I really do need to play it at some point, but my community on Twitch dictates a lot of what I play on a consistent basis. For example, at the time of this video being released, I'm currently working on the library of Novotrade and Appaloosa Interactive, so you'll never really know what you'll see on my channel. While Crystalis is an amazing game, the commercial for it was even more epic, because for the first time in commercial history, at least for me, I was surprised.
Crystalis, new from SNK. For play on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Are you up to the challenge?
Well, to be fair, it is SNK, so even their commercials show someone failing. Kinda live up to their reputation, don't they? I don't think I ever recall a protagonist failing in a commercial. This might be a first for me. Either way, it's a great commercial for a fantastic game. This game carries a reputation for being a fundamentally fun RPG. It's also a multiplayer experience as well, and as far as I know, this is one of the first multiplayer RPGs that I've encountered in video gaming history so far, but the truth is, the game itself is really fucking abstract. And it's abstract for a few reasons. The world that Swords and Serpents tries to create from a narrative standpoint is absolutely donkey shit, and the worst part is the password system. This game came out before the era of the battery save on the NES, so the way that Interplay worked around it was by dumping a horrifically complex string of characters that act as a password, and if you mess up any letters, be it a 0 or an O, you've essentially lost your game. So it's important to take a picture of it now, especially in a modern era, or just use save states.
Tonight, instead of just playing a video game, live it. Swords and Serpents takes you to a new world where you become one of a band of super warriors. Do you enter the dungeon, choose your weapon, or forge ahead The battle is at hand. You must gain experience and power by defeating the evils of the dark. Danger lurks in the dungeon, but so do the rewards. Enter Acclaim's world of swords and serpents on your NES if you dare.
Don't get me wrong, it reeks of 80s machismo, but I actually found it pretty charming. I served in the Air Force for 11 years, so anytime I see an airplane starting up in a commercial, I'm instantly attracted to it, especially if it's a warbird. It's not too overly complex though. In fact, you might think I'm silly, but for what it is, I appreciated it.
It's up to you. You've got to blast your way deep into enemy territory. Sky Shark, the incredible arcade hit. Now available for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Sky Shark from Taito, the only game in town. Available where your favorite video games are sold.
For anyone who doesn't know, Golgo 13 is a manga, and it's an older manga, having its origins in the late 1960s, courtesy of Takao Saito. And the whole principle of it is that Golgo 13 is a hitman, assassin for hire, contract killer, whatever you want to call him, and he's good at his job. So good that to this date, it has a Guinness World Record for highest number of volumes, and that record still stands to this day, even though Saito passed away in 2021. Now, Golgo 13 had a few films, a few OVAs, and more importantly, 2 NES games. The first was Top Secret Episode, and the second was the Mafat Conspiracy, but the commercial I saw was for the first game.
Top Secret Golgo 13 by Vic Tokai for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
I like the reference to the source material for Golgo as a manga, and I really enjoyed that little reflection from Golgo 13's custom M16. If you read the manga, he really likes that gun. This one is sort of a bundled commercial, and there were plenty. When it came to buying airspace, Konami was pretty efficient at how they showed the world their games. In some cases, they focused on single titles, but more often than not, they bundled games together. This was also done for their shadow company, Ultra Games, but I elected to place the Konami one on my list instead.
I've heard kids talking about Konami video games from the Nintendo Entertainment System like they were real. Come on! I mean, the action in Konami's Russian Attack is awesome. And those dudes in Castlevania are pretty intense. And I'll even admit that the sound in Konami games is jamming. But realistic? Give me a break. Konami video games, so real, they'll blow you away.
Tackling 4 games in one commercial? That's fairly ambitious. But historically, Konami was always badass at advertising, especially when it came to box arts. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked out that episode, I did talk about the top 10 NES box arts, and I'll link it down below. Feel free to check it out. The Game Genie was a controversial piece of equipment because in how it was designed, it essentially patches the code from an NES game, and with Nintendo being Nintendo, they didn't really like that at all. In fact, there was a lawsuit over it. And guess what? They lost. Galoob didn't hold back with their ambitious commercials after they won that lawsuit, and it reeks of 90s culture.
Yo, video game dudes, talk to me! Excellent! This is Game Genie from Galoob, the awesome video game enhancer for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Attach it to most of your video games, like Double Dragon 2, Super Mario Bros. 3. And buckle up, cause you'll do what no video dude has done before. You can go to any level, get unlimited lives, live forever, like a video zombie. Excellent! You'll jump totally higher. Make your own effects. And Game Genie gives you more firepower. Go for it, Dudester.
Go to any
level, jump higher, stay bigger, live forever. Game Genie, the radical video game enhancer from Galoob.
One of the cooler things about this commercial, if you paid attention, is that the games featured are both Codemaster IPs, Big Nose the Caveman and Dizzy, so in some way they managed not only to promote the Game Genie, but also 2 NES titles. And yes, the Game Genie was created by Codemasters, but when it came time to distribute it, Codemasters left that to Galoob and Camerica, who were all about shitty NES accessories. This game is beyond fun, and I've had a blast playing it. Some people think this is a rhythm game. What do you think? Feel free to comment down below, I'm actually genuinely curious. Now when it comes to celebrity endorsements, companies loved using big names, and with the NES growing in popularity, what better person to reach out to than Mike Tyson when it came to pushing out a boxing game. Now Punch-Out as a franchise, it already had a few games established. This is technically the 5th game in the franchise. Many folks don't talk about the original arcade games, as well as the 2 spin-offs, one on Game & Watch and the other one being an arm wrestling game. Maybe I'll cover them at some point. I will say that I expect Mike Tyson to act as unhinged as he always was. Let's see if this commercial holds up.
Power, power, power. Now, you are playing with power.
Punch-Out by Nintendo. 11 world-class contenders. Take them down with your controller, beat them all, and you've got a shot at Tyson's title.
Power.
But for that, you've got to beat Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
Yeah, seems about right. That laugh terrified me. But I will say, I don't think that's Mike's laugh. It sounds like they dubbed it. Maybe it's just me. I do like the aesthetic of the commercial, though. During the time I sat down and watched these NES commercials, I noticed tons of attention to Tetris. I saw at least 3 different variations of Tetris commercials, and none of them were the Tengen release. It was all Nintendo. Now the one that I elected to place on the list was the Tetris-sized one. It's a pretty polarizing commercial for what it is.
You need a Tetris shot.
Tetris.
Have you been Tetris-sized?
Square, rectangle, trapezoid, tetrazoid.
Nintendo introduces Tetris.
Put a piece here, put a piece there. Use your thumbs, use your eyes. Find yourself Tetris-sized.
Now you're playing with power.
I still laugh my ass off when I hear that opera singer sing Nintendo. The way that she does, that's just... Maybe it's my ADHD that makes the utter chaos of this commercial so funny to me. Fun fact, there's a Tetris commercial where the World Trade Center gets turned into Tetris blocks. And they get deleted. Foreshadowing much? Like I mentioned before, a little bit earlier in this episode, I tended to shy away from commercials that focus solely on gameplay. While some might think that seeing footage of the game is cool, I personally think it's a cop-out. And that's probably a hot take on my behalf, but we all have our own preferences for what we like to see, and in the case of Paperboy, I think the commercial's pretty unique. It's the total embodiment of what I like.
Warning, such behavior is irresponsible, immature, and very foolish. We recommend you try it at home. Paperboy from Mindscape for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
To me, it's more effective to interpret the events of a game in a live-action scene, and that was a common trend for this era of commercials. They would take the events of the game, make it real life, and connect with consumers on a more personal level. Granted, the kid in this game is an absolute menace, but that's neither here nor there. It was an effective ad campaign. This is one of my favorite games on the NES, and the commercial for it does a fantastic job of showing just how large the cultural influence for Mario was in the early 90s. This is a well-known one, you probably remember it, so who knows, maybe we'll go down memory lane together.
Mario! Mario! Mario!
He's back. All you had to do was ask. Super Mario Bros. 3 from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
The Mario trilogy on the NES, it was a powerful start to a legacy franchise, one that still goes strong to this day. As Mario is the #1 cash cow for Nintendo, and in many ways, he always was. Sure, Donkey Kong was a breakout hit in the arcades, but once Nintendo stepped away from the arcade spectrum to solely focus on home console video gaming, it was always Mario doing the heavy lifting. All three of these games ended up being bestsellers on the NES, so props to Nintendo. This is a goofy one, and I love Goofy, right? As we slowly enter the 90s era of gaming, the commercials are either going to go one of three ways. Sometimes they just show you footage, right? And then they have a deep voice telling you how epic the game is. Sometimes we see a live action representation of the game, and sometimes we just go balls to the wall and have an incredibly eccentric commercial. Acclaim chose a mixture of the latter two when releasing a commercial for their wireless remote, a third-party accessory.
Get the power to move with the Acclaim wireless remote for your Nintendo Entertainment System. The Acclaim remote gets you mobile in a WrestleMania grudge match. Flying Airwolf, the Acclaim remote's rapid fire mode means higher scores per mission. In the battle for Ironsword, seconds count, so you need a controller with a look and feel you already know. Accurate up to 30 feet. The official wireless remote controller, licensed by Nintendo, created by Acclaim. Get the Acclaim remote, the power to move.
Believe it or not, I actually own one of these. Acclaim had a solid line of third-party controllers, and at some point I would like to do an Every Games Ever episode about the NES accessories. But I wanted to own a majority of them before sitting down and doing it, and that's easier said than done. A lot of these accessories can be quite expensive. Finally, we have, in my opinion, the best commercial that I saw over the course of my observation period. Ironsword. Now, I've never played a single Wizards and Warriors game like ever, never struck me as interesting. But I do know that this game is notorious for the box art alone. It actually has Fabio on the front of it. So, how did the commercial end up?
Come on. Almost. Finally, yeah!
Triumph is ours!
Kuros!
But the battle of Wizards and Warriors continues with Ironsword. The evil wizard Malkill will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands! Back, Fire Beast!
Live the saga of Ironsword on your Nintendo Entertainment System from Acclaim.
Kuros?
This is an epic-ass TV spot, and to me it covers all the requirements to really draw you into buying the game. We see the gameplay footage, we see the warrior enter, we really see a child's imagination bleeding into the real life. And I laugh my ass off every single time the warrior screams, "The fate of the world is in your hands! Back, Foul Beast!" It carries the same energy as Dumbledore asking Harry if he put his name in the Goblet of Fire. Is Ironsword even good? I always thought of it as a jumping simulator because it tends to look like it. And that's it for today's episode. I know that this was really simple, but sometimes it's nice to be able to create slightly less intensive episodes to just catch up with life a little bit. And this was a requested episode from the community, so I hope I did it justice. Were there any commercials that stuck out to you as a kid of the era? Feel free to tell us down below, I'd love to check them out. Also, if you made it to the end of this video, you're already home in our community. We're just a group of people who enjoy remembering a time when life was a little bit easier to live. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the projects and the videos that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.